Okay, let's unpack this then. Today we're diving into the XRP Ledger Consensus Protocol. XRP LCP for short.
Right.
And this is basically the engine behind the XRP Ledger, yeah.
Yeah.
The system that's designed to move value around seamlessly.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating, I think, is how it tries to solve that classic problem in digital currencies.
You mean double spending and getting everyone to agree on the state of things.
Precisely. Making sure everyone's on the same page, preventing that double spend, all within a decentralized peer-to-peer network. It's a tough nut to crack.
It really is. And the approach here is a bit different, isn't it? Not like some others where everyone needs to know who is participating.
That's a key distinction. XRP LCP is built so it can reach consensus even without total agreement on network membership. Instead, it relies on individual nodes having their own trust lists.
These unique node lists, or UNLs.
Exactly, the UNLs. So our mission today really is to dig into how this protocol actually works, what some recent analyses tell us about its safety and its ability to keep processing transactions, liveness.
And what all that might mean for where things are headed. Okay, so if it relies on these individual UNLs, what are the core mechanics? What makes it tick?
Well, you can break it down into three main parts. First up is deliberation.
Okay.
This is where nodes are constantly proposing sets of transactions and then refining those proposals. Think of it like negotiation rounds.
Trying to agree on what goes into the next ledger.
Pretty much. They iterate until enough trusted nodes on their UNL agree on a set of transactions.
Okay, so they deliberate, they agree on transactions. How do those become, official? Set in stone.
Right, that's the second part. Validation. This is crucial. A node decides a ledger is fully validated, meaning it's permanent, it's authoritative.
Irrevocable.
Irrevocable, yes. That happens once a quorum confirms it. Typically, that quorum is set at 80% of the nodes on its own UNL.
80%, okay. And the third part?
The third is the preferred branch rule. This helps keep the network coordinated if, say, temporary disagreements or forks pop up. It uses the shared history, the ancestry of ledgers, to figure out which chain has the most support from the network.
Got it. So, deliberation for day-to-day agreement, validation for finality, and preferred branch to resolve conflicts.
You've got it. And it's important to note, while deliberation keeps things running smoothly, the real guarantees, the safety and liveness properties, they mostly hinge on how validation and preferred branch work together.
Right. And this is where it starts to get really interesting, especially around safety. Keeping the ledger consistent, making sure two honest nodes don't end up validating different histories. Yeah, that's fundamental.
Absolutely paramount.
Early ideas about how much these UNLs needed to overlap for safety seemed, well, lower. Maybe 20% initially. Then later suggestions pointing towards, over 40%?
Yeah, those were earlier figures. But more recent, rigorous analysis looking at more general fault models, specifically Byzantine faults where nodes can be actively malicious.
Okay.
It reveals a much, much stricter requirement. For any two nodes to be absolutely guaranteed not to fork, their UNLs need, get this, more than 90% overlap.
Wow. Over 90%. That feels incredibly high. It almost sounds like everyone needs to trust almost exactly the same set of validators for strong safety guarantees.
It is surprisingly high. It leaves very little room for variation if you want that provable safety under the toughest conditions. It does challenge some notions of what decentralized trust looks like in practice for this protocol.
Definitely changes the picture. Okay, so that's safety. What about the flip side? Liveness. Can the network actually guarantee it'll keep processing transactions? Can it get stuck?
Liveness, that's another complex area. Unfortunately, there are some known theoretical limits in distributed systems. Guaranteeing progress all the time in a network that could be asynchronous, where messages might be delayed indefinitely and where nodes might fail, well, it's fundamentally impossible to guarantee in all cases.
So XRP LCP isn't immune to that. It can potentially get stuck.
It can. And what's perhaps more surprising is when it can get stuck. Research shows that even with 99% UNL overlaps, almost perfect agreement on trust, and no malicious nodes, no Byzantine faults.
Even then,
you can construct scenarios like imagine a network split where two groups just barely miss that 80% threshold for validating the same ledger, and they might validate conflicting ones. They could potentially stall, unable to reach that validating quorum for any next ledger without some kind of outside intervention.
like a digital standoff, as you said before. So while it might be rare, The risk is theoretically there.
It is. Now, in its current setup, with the commonly used sort of default UNL plus other validators, the network can often guarantee progress under what are called civil conditions, basically, when messages get through reasonably fast and nodes behave correctly. But the theoretical possibility of stalling exists.
So given these really tight requirements for safety and this theoretical risk for liveness, what's the path forward? Is this just the state of play, or is there work being done to improve things?
There definitely is. While XRP LCP is proven safe under those strict conditions, and it demonstrably works day to day, these findings do highlight areas for potential improvement. And that's where Cobalt enters the picture.
Cobalt. Okay, a proposed alternative.
Exactly. Cobalt is a proposed next-generation consensus protocol designed specifically to address some of these limitations we've talked about.
And how does it aim to do that? What are the targets?
Well, significantly, Cobalt aims for safety with only more than 60% overlap required between UNLs. That's a big drop from over 90%.
That's a major difference, offering much more flexibility and trust choices.
A huge difference. And perhaps even more importantly, Cobalt is designed to guarantee liveness, guarantee forward progress, even if you have the maximum number of faulty nodes it's designed to tolerate, and even under arbitrary network message delays, those asynchronous conditions we mentioned.
Wow. Okay, so Cobalt sounds like a really promising evolution, potentially offering greater robustness and maybe even enabling more decentralization in practice.
It represents a really exciting direction, aiming for strong guarantees with less stringent operational requirements.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive really highlights that intricate balancing act in designing these decentralized systems, doesn't it?
It really does. We've seen the mechanics of XRP LCP, this pretty surprising finding about the high 90% plus overlap needed for absolute theoretical safety, and the real challenge around ensuring liveness.
And as these digital payment systems keep evolving, getting a handle on how these consensus protocols actually work, their strengths, their limitations, it just becomes more and more critical.
Absolutely vital.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? As protocols like Cobalt potentially make these systems more inherently resilient and maybe more decentralized, how does that start to reshape our whole concept of what trust and maybe even control means in this digital world?